Wait. Pause whatever you're doing. A jury just walked back into a Massachusetts courtroom and demolished an entire criminal case against Stefon Diggs in 90 minutes. 90. Strangulation charge. Gone. Assault charge. Gone. And the woman who put him there? Caught on camera dodging the one question that would have cleared her name in front of the entire internet. Bro, this wasn't a verdict. This was a public execution of a narrative. And Mila Adams really thought walking into that courthouse with a 7-figure number tucked in her back pocket was gonna end well for her? Pick the worst possible play. Baby, she just picked it. Real quick before we dig. If you'll want the unfiltered version of this story while every other channel reads you the sanitized one, smash that like and lock in that subscribe. We do the receipts work nobody else wants to do. Now let's get into it. Alright, pull up a chair. Because the story I'm about to walk you all through is one of those rare cases where the verdict isn't even the wildest part. The verdict is just the cherry on top of a courtroom Sunday that completely melted down on live coverage. Stefon Diggs, yeah, that's Stefon Diggs, the 4-time Pro Bowl wide receiver, the former New England Patriot, the fantasy football cheat code that you'll been drafting in the 3rd round for half a decade, walked out of Norfolk Superior Court in Dedham, Massachusetts on May 5, 2026, completely, fully, no questions asked, acquitted. Not guilty on felony strangulation. Not guilty on misdemeanor assault and battery. Stone cold cleared as reported by the Los Angeles Times. And listen, this wasn't one of those marathon trials that drags on for 6 weeks with rotating expert witnesses and forensic reenactments. Nah, this was a TWO. Day. Trial. 2 days. Jury got the case at 3:07 p.m. and walked back into that courtroom with a verdict by 4:33 p.m. according to NBC Boston's live trial coverage. That's 8 to 6 minutes. 8 to 6. Most of you'll spend longer than that deciding what to order on Uber Eats. That jury didn't even have to sleep on it. They didn't need a chalkboard. They didn't need to reread transcripts. They walked in the back room, looked at each other, and basically said we good, and walked right back out. The accuser at the center of this whole storm? Mila Adams, Diggs' former private chef, the woman who, according to her own testimony, had keys to the man's house, cooked his meals, lived in the same space he did, and had what court documents describe as a working relationship that turned ugly somewhere along the way. The allegations she brought to the table were not small allegations either. We're talking about a December 2nd, 2025 incident at Diggs' Massachusetts home, where Mila claimed Diggs entered her bedroom, slapped her, and put hands on her neck per the Enterprise News Court report. Those are felony-level charges, y'all. In Massachusetts, strangulation alone carries up to 5 years in state prison. We're not talking about a slap on the wrist. We're talking about a man's career, his freedom, his ability to ever step on an NFL field again. His name in the Hall of Fame conversation. All of it was sitting on the table when that gavel came down. And Mila really walked into Norfolk Superior Court thinking a 2-day trial was gonna be enough to lock up a millionaire athlete with a paper trail longer than a CVS receipt. Brew. You don't bring a stick to a tank fight. She showed up with a story. The defense showed up with text messages, surveillance video, financial records, and a timeline that ate her testimony for breakfast. By the time the jury came back, Stefon Diggs was on his feet, visibly emotional, hugging his attorneys as captured by Instagram footage shared by trial observers. And outside that courthouse, his lawyers didn't even bother spinning. They went straight to the cameras and said the part most defense attorneys would never say out loud, that the system needs to focus on real victims per the Enterprise News Verdict Day recap. That's not a victory lap. That's a MIC drop. Now I know what some of you are thinking. Okay, he beat the case. Big deal. What's the story? The story, my friends, is how he beat the case. The story is the receipts. The story is the dollar trail. The story is the deleted texts. The story is the dancing video that no PR team on the planet could have stopped from going viral. So buckle up, because we're about to crack open the evidence vault and walk through every single receipt that turned this whole thing into what can only be described as a courtroom massacre. Let's go. All right. Sit up straight. Put your phone face down. We're about to go through the actual quotes from this trial because, real talk, the quotes tell the entire story by themselves. You don't need a narrator. You don't need a hot take. You just need ears. Quote number 1. And this is the one that broke the internet in half. In open court on the morning of May 5, 2026, defense attorney Andrew Kettlewell looked Mila Adams dead in her face across the witness stand, with the jury watching, with reporters typing in real time, and asked her a question that should have had a one-word answer. Per the New York Post courtroom transcript coverage, the question was, 3 weeks ago, your lawyer demanded $5.5 million from Stefon Diggs, correct? That's it. That's the whole question. Yes or no? A first grader could answer that. My nephew, who still thinks Cocomelon is high art, could answer that. Mila's response? Per the same Yahoo Sports trial coverage, that is client-lawyer privilege. I cannot speak on that. Bro. When I read that line for the first time, I had to put my phone down, get up off the couch, walk to my kitchen, pour a glass of water, drink the whole glass, and come back. Because that's not an answer. That's a confession with extra steps. That's a confession wearing a costume hoping nobody notices it's still a confession underneath. You cannot hide behind attorney-client privilege when somebody asks you what you asked for. The privilege protects what your lawyer told you, what advice you got, what strategy you cooked up in the back room. The privilege does not protect the existence of a demand letter that went out into the world. That letter exists. That number exists. And the moment she ducked, instead of saying yes or no, she handed the jury the verdict. Right there. On the stand. In real time. Mila lost the room before lunchtime, and she didn't even know she lost it. Quote number 2. Let's rewind back to day 1 of testimony, May 4th, 2026. Mila Adams took the stand for the prosecution and laid out her version of the night. According to NBC Boston's Day 1 trial recap, she told the jury that Diggs entered her bedroom and slapped her during the December 2025 incident. That's the prosecution's whole movie right there. Heavy claim. Specific claim. The kind of testimony juries are supposed to take seriously. The kind that's supposed to make 12 strangers lean forward in their seats and pay attention. And for a minute, it worked. Day 1 of that trial belonged to Mila. The narrative was sympathetic. The lighting was good. The story tracked. If the trial had ended that afternoon, we might be having a completely different conversation tonight. But the trial didn't end that afternoon. Day 2 came. And day 2 is where everything fell apart. Quote number 3. This is the one that broke necks across NFL Twitter, sports talk radio, and every group chat in America. According to NBC Boston's continued coverage of the cross-examination, Diggs' defense team revealed text messages allegedly sent by Mila in which he referred to Diggs using a vulgar term and stated, direct quote, "I'm ruining that B************* life. Yo. I had to read it 3 times. When that text showed up in the trial coverage, the temperature in the entire case dropped about 40 degrees. Because, brew, you cannot walk into a courtroom on a Monday, raise your right hand, swear on whatever holy book you respect, and tell 12 jurors that you were terrified for your safety, and then have the defense pull up receipts from your own phone where you told somebody you were gonna ruin this man's life. That's not a contradiction. That's a self-inflicted nuclear strike. That's the dumbest flex I have ever seen in a witness chair, and I've watched a lot of trial footage. You don't recover from that. There is no closing argument on oath that unrings that bell. Quote number 4. Diggs' attorneys then made the kind of move that defense lawyers usually say for closing arguments, but they made it right there in the middle of cross-examination. Per ESPN's trial coverage, Diggs' legal team flat out argued to the jury that the alleged assault never happened, and they openly questioned Adams' credibility, specifically suggesting the dispute was about money, not safety, not implication, not hint, not subtle eyebrow raise. Explicit. They said the quiet part loud, with the volume up, with the bass turned up, with the jury hanging on every word. And once you put that idea, this is about money, into 12 jurors' heads, you cannot uninstall it. It's there for the rest of the trial. Quote number 5. And this is the financial smoking gun. Per the verdict day reporting from ABC affiliate coverage, the defense laid out a $19,000 demand that increased over time, with her attorney later seeking $5.5 million. Read that again, slowly. $19,000. Initial ask. Then, somehow, somewhere, somebody on Mila's side of the table decided the number wasn't right. Tear it up. Start over. New number. $5.5 million. When I read that escalation, I literally double-took. I scrolled back up to make sure I wasn't reading it wrong. Is she serious? That's not a settlement curve. That's not normal negotiation. That's not standard employment dispute escalation. That's a price tag being put on a story. And the moment a price tag enters the chat, the credibility of the story takes a backseat to the credibility of the invoice. That right there is where the case died. Not in closing arguments. Not in jury instructions. Right on that line. Quote number 6. And this is the one the defense waited for. The one they saved like a finishing move. According to the Yahoo Sports trial recap, Attorney Kettlewell argued to the jury that Adams was shown in cell phone videos socializing and dancing in the days after the alleged assault. Just sit with that visual for a second. Just sit with it. We'll do the full forensic breakdown on that footage in Part C. But for now, just understand what the defense did. They literally told the jury, look at her words, then look at her behavior, then look at the timeline, and tell us if those 3 things line up. They didn't even need to answer it. They just had to ask it. The jury did the math at home. Now that we got the quotes loaded into the chamber, let's connect the dots, because the timeline is where this thing goes from a credibility issue into a full-on case study in courtroom strategy. Here's where it gets nasty. Because the timeline of this case is the case. Forget the testimony for a second. Forget the verdict. The dates, the dollar amounts, and the gaps between them are the actual story. That $19,000 demand? That was the opening bid. The starting line. The let's see if they bite quietly number. And listen, $19,000 in an employment dispute is not crazy. That's the kind of number that makes a defense lawyer say let's just write the check and move on with our lives. But then, and this is the part that ate Mila's credibility for dinner, that number ballooned. According to Sportskeeda's trial reporting, that $5.5 million demand landed on Diggs' lawyers' desks roughly 3 weeks before the criminal trial started. 3 weeks. Not 3 months. Not 3 years. 3 weeks. That's not a victim seeking justice. That's a final boss negotiation right before the timer hits 0. That's we have one more chance to cash out before this thing goes public and we lose all leverage. Brew really thought nobody was gonna notice the jump from 19,000 to 5.5 million? That's terrible math and terrible strategy. That's the negotiation equivalent of doubling down on a 20. You didn't have to do it, and now you just blew the whole hand. But hold up, because there's a context layer underneath the surface that almost nobody in the gossip cycle is stitching together. Per USA Today's reporting on the broader pattern, Stefon Diggs is already in active federal court fighting another civil case, Diggs versus Griffith, docket number 8:2025 CV 03767, currently sitting in the U.S. District Court of Maryland. Another accuser, another allegation, another parallel track, and Diggs' defense in both cases, allegedly the same skeleton key, that these are extortion attempts targeting his NFL contract and his net worth, not legitimate grievances seeking justice. The USA Today piece literally framed this as athletes having a target on their backs for exactly this kind of move. 2 cases. Different jurisdictions. Same playbook signature. That's not a coincidence. That's a pattern. And once you see the pattern, you cannot unsee it. Then there's the post-verdict celebration clip. You'll peep this? Within days of a not guilty verdict, per coverage discussed in the Reddit thread cataloging Adams' public response, Mila Adams was already posting again. Visible, active, smiling. We're talking about a former accuser, fresh off of publicly losing a criminal case on national coverage, choosing to broadcast joy on social media within the same news cycle as the verdict. The optics? Catastrophic. The timing? Worse. Any halfway competent advisor would have said go dark for 60 days. Disappear. Let the news cycle move on. Then we'll talk. But Mila isn't getting that advice. She's getting whatever advice fits the next monetization play, the next podcast booking, the next think piece, the next paid appearance. And it shows. And let's talk about the platform where the most damaging moment happened. The infamous client-lawyer privilege dodge? That didn't happen on a controlled podcast set. It didn't happen in a written statement her PR team could edit. It happened in open court, with the New York Post and every other major outlet's reporters typing every syllable in real time. No edit button. No producer in her ear. No second take. Just her, the question, the microphone, and a coached non-answer that the entire jury, the entire press pool, and the entire internet processed in real time. Which tells you something important. Her legal team did not prep her for that exact question. They did prep her, and the rehearsed answer was the dodge itself. Either way, that's malpractice adjacent. Because the real answer, yes, my lawyer sent a demand letter, is one that the prosecution couldn't afford to let her say out loud. But hold on, because here's where it gets even more interesting. Now check this out. Nobody on the gossip channels is talking about the actual mechanics of what happened in that Norfolk County courtroom. The micro moves, the body language, the phrasing, the forensic level details that decide trials. We're gonna get into that now. Detail number 1, Mila's exact phrasing during cross. Read it again with fresh eyes. She didn't say no. She didn't say I don't recall. She didn't say I'd have to check with my attorney. She said, verbatim, client-lawyer privilege. I cannot speak on that. That specific construction is not panic talk. Real shock, real surprise, real fist sounds like what? I don't understand the question or no. Coached deflection sounds like a legal phrase memorized for one exact predicted question. The fluency of her dodge is the evidence that the dodge was rehearsed. Which means somebody on her team knew that question was coming. Knew the $5.5 million demand was gonna get raised in cross. And gave her ONE single script to fall back on. And she ran it. And the jury heard the running. When you rehearse a line that hard, 12 random Americans can smell the rehearsal. They've seen enough true crime documentaries. They've seen enough scripted reality TV. They know what coached looks like, and they know what real looks like. Mila really thought that one canned line was gonna get her through cross? That's the courtroom equivalent of bringing a pool noodle to a sword fight. You're not getting out of that exchange alive. Detail number 2, the dancing video. The defense did not play that footage for entertainment value. They played it as a forensic exhibit. According to NBC Boston's continued courtroom reporting, the footage showed Adams partying and socializing in the days after the alleged December 2025 attack, and the detail that matters most isn't the dancing itself. It's WHO she was dancing with. The reporting indicated she was around members of Diggs' inner circle. So pause and think about that for a second. She's saying, under oath, that this man choked her, slapped her, terrorized her in her own bedroom, and within days, she's voluntarily in the same social environment as the people closest to him, comfortable, smiling, on video. Look, the body language in genuine post-trauma cases doesn't typically look like that. Juries notice that without anybody having to explain it to them. You don't need to fly in a forensic psychologist to break down that footage. 12 regular Americans look at it and instinctively go, wait, what? That's a credibility crater. And Mila walked right into it on camera weeks before the trial even started. Detail number 3, the dollar escalation math. $19,000 to $5,500,000. That's a multiplier of approximately 290 times the original ask. 290x. In civil employment disputes, and I've watched way too many of these, normal escalation looks like 2x to 5x. Maybe 10x at the very aggressive end if new damages get added. 290x is not a negotiation curve. 290x is a brand new theory of damages being introduced at the 11th hour. Which tells you that somebody on Mila's side of the table reassessed the value of her story between the first ask and the last ask. Maybe a new lawyer joined the team. Maybe a media consultant whispered in somebody's ear. Maybe somebody Googled Diggs' contract numbers. Whatever it was, the story didn't change. The price of the story changed. And those are two different things. The jury caught that. The math doesn't lie. Detail number 4, and this is the dirtiest one, the deleted texts. According to trial day reporting cited in coverage from Football Forever HQ's Verdict Day post, Mila reportedly admitted under oath that she deleted past text messages between herself and Diggs. Now listen, in any criminal case, deleting text messages between you and the defendant is not just a credibility hit. That's a potential spoliation issue. That's destruction of evidence. You don't delete texts in a case where you are the alleged victim. You preserve every byte. You back it up to the cloud. You hand your phone to your lawyer and you say save everything. Because everything that supports your story is in there, right? Unless it isn't. The fact that text got deleted, And the fact that the surviving texts include that ruining that B *********** lifeline per the NBC Boston reporting. Bro, just imagine what got deleted. The defense didn't have to imagine. They just had to point at the empty space on the timeline and let the jury fill in the blank. And the jury filled it in, with their imaginations, and walked back in with a not guilty in 86 minutes. Now let's see how the different media outlets framed all of this, because that's a story inside the story. Watch how different outlets framed the same exact trial, because the framing tells you everything about who's reading the room correctly and who's still asleep. ESPN played it down the middle. Their coverage framed the verdict as the outcome of a pay dispute and emphasized the defense's credibility attack on the accuser. Neutral. Clean. Just the bones of the story. ESPN's audience is broad, so they covered it broad. No spin, no flavor, no opinion. Just the facts that ran through the news cycle. TMZ and the New York Post went harder. They put the $5.5 million number right in the headline. Same case. Completely different center of gravity. TMZ and the Post know what their audience is gonna click on, and they understood instantly that the money trail was the actual headline, not the verdict. Because the verdict is one news cycle. The money trail is a forever story. The number sticks in people's heads. The number becomes the meme. The number becomes the citation in every future case like this one. Yahoo Sports and the post-verdict coverage went the most damaging route for Mila. They elevated the Dodge moment, that sidewalk of the courtroom pivot, into the defining image of the entire story. The Dodge is the story for that lane of coverage. That framing is the one that's gonna outlive the verdict by years. That's the clip that's gonna get re-uploaded in 2028 when the next celebrity assault trial drops. That's the framing that's gonna become the cultural memory of this case. USA Today went a completely different direction. Their May 5, 2026 piece zoomed all the way out and framed the Diggs case as part of a broader, systemic pattern. Athletes being targeted for extortion. That's a major editorial swing. That choice doesn't just report the case, it recontextualizes the case. Suddenly the question stops being did Diggs do it, and starts being is this happening to athletes systematically across the league, across sports, across industries. That's a huge shift. And once that question is in the air, it doesn't go away. And the local Massachusetts coverage from Enterprise News went straight news, verdict, charges, jurisdiction, jury size, done. No spin. No editorializing. Just the courthouse report from the people who actually had reporters in the room. Now I already see some of y'all in the comments getting ready to type, well actually, invoking attorney-client privilege is legally legitimate. You can't hold that against her. And listen, you're not wrong. Legally, technically, on paper, Mila had every right to invoke privilege in that moment. That's a real legal protection. But, and this is the part that destroys the defense of the Dodge, invoking privilege protects the content of a privileged communication. It does not protect the existence of one. She could have said, yes, my attorney sent a formal demand letter on my behalf. The internal communications between me and my attorney about that letter are privileged. That's the textbook move. That's what every law school professor would teach. Instead, she refused to even acknowledge that the demand existed at all. That's not privilege. That's avoidance dressed up in privileged costume. And the jury, 12 regular human beings with functioning eyeballs and ears, they clocked the difference instantly. The defenders of the Dodge are still out there trying to spin this one as a normal legal move. But those are the same people who looked at the dancing video and said she was just trying to live her life. Those are the same people who looked at the $5.5 million demand and said she deserves compensation for her trauma. The receipts don't lie. The math doesn't lie. The media outlets that mattered already filed their narrative, and that narrative is locked in. But here's what nobody, and I mean nobody, is saying out loud. Something about this whole circus feels deeply, profoundly OFF to me. And it's been bothering me since the second that gavel hit and the verdict got read. I've been turning it over in my head, picking it apart, looking at it from every angle, and I keep coming back to the same conclusion. So I'm gonna say it. Out loud. On the record. Even though half of y'all are gonna disagree with me. And that's fine. Here's the thing. Everybody right now is debating the binary. Is Mila a victim? Is Mila an opportunist? Pick a team. Tribal warfare in the comments. Group chats divided. Hot takes flying on every podcast. World War III for the algorithm. And while y'all are arguing about that surface-level question, the actual story, the story that actually matters, walked out the side door of that courthouse with exactly 0 cameras pointed at it. The forbidden take? Ready? Here it is. This case is being used as a template. Not by Mila Adams. By the lawyers who packaged her case. This isn't really about one chef in one Massachusetts house and one NFL receiver. This is about a documented, repeatable playbook being systematically weaponized against high-net-worth defendants in domestic-adjacent disputes, and Stefon Diggs just happened to be the first one this cycle who decided to swing back instead of writing a check. Look at the silhouette of the case. I want you to actually trace the outline with me. Famous defendant with a public contract that lists his net worth. Check. Working-class accuser with intimate, daily access to the defendant's private space. Check. Pre-trial demand letter that escalates dramatically from a reasonable employment dispute number to an absurd, headline-grabbing number. Check. A parallel civil case in another jurisdiction creating media pressure on multiple fronts. In this case, the Griffith matter in Maryland Federal Court, docket 8:2025 CV 03767, as covered in USA Today's broader pattern reporting. Check. A coordinated media drumbeat designed to pressure a settlement before evidence ever hits a jury. Check. We have seen this exact shape before. Different sports. Different industries. Different defendants. Same architecture. Same beats. Same escalation curve. This is the same general playbook structure that's been deployed against athletes, executives, entertainers, and producers across the last decade. And Mila's legal team just got caught running it in HD, on live coverage, in front of 12 jurors who weren't buying it. Now here's the part that's gonna make a lot of you genuinely uncomfortable, and I need you to hear me out before you close the tab. Mila Adams might be telling the truth about something. Maybe not the strangulation. Maybe not the assault as charged. But something. Working environments with wealthy famous men can absolutely get ugly. Power imbalances exist. Inappropriate behavior exists. Verbal abuse exists. Hostile workplaces exist. We all know that. None of that is in dispute. The problem isn't whether there's a kernel of truth somewhere in her story. The problem is that the playbook doesn't care about the kernel of truth. The playbook takes the kernel and scales it into a 7-figure number, because the lawyers eating off the playbook need the 7-figure number to make their percentage cut worth the months of work. And the second the kernel gets scaled, the actual truth dies inside the scaling. The truth becomes a marketing input. The truth becomes a narrative seed for a settlement spreadsheet. The truth becomes a thing you mention in the demand letter, not a thing you sent to the case around. That's not victim blaming. Let me say that again, so the algorithm catches it. That is not victim blaming. That's lawyer blaming. Because the actual people who built and refined and franchised this playbook, they are not the ones in any of these headlines. They are not getting their names tagged in the viral clips. They are cashing percentage-based checks in glass offices while their clients get publicly executed on courthouse sidewalks. Mila Adams is a pawn in somebody else's law firm marketing strategy, and based on her public behavior, she might not even fully understand it yet. The truly scary part? The real cost of all this isn't paid by Stefon Diggs. He walked. He cried. He hugged his lawyers. He's gonna show up at training camp. The real cost isn't paid by Mila Adams either. She still has her socials. She still has her followers. She still has her dancing videos. And she's still gonna have her appearances on whatever podcast circuit will write her a check to retell her side. She'll be fine in a transactional sense. The real cost is paid by the woman watching this verdict tonight from a kitchen in some other city, working for some other famous man, who actually got hurt, who actually has a story, who actually has bruises and texts and timeline-consistent evidence, who watched, in real time, what happens when you walk into a precinct without a perfect paper trail. She just got her lesson. And the lesson is, don't. Stay quiet. Sign the NDA. Eat the check. Take the severance. Move on. Because the system that just publicly chewed up Mila Adams is the same system that's gonna chew you up too, and it does not care, structurally, who's telling the truth. It cares who has the better paper. The playbook just claimed its loudest scalp yet, and the next genuine victim is gonna watch this verdict and zip her mouth shut for life. Possibly forever. And watch the pattern carefully going forward, because the people who run this playbook are already moving on. The Griffith case is still active in Maryland federal court. Other plaintiffs' firms across the country are studying this verdict to figure out what worked and what didn't. The $5.5 million ask didn't land? Fine. Next time it'll be $4 million with cleaner discovery scrubbing. The deleted text blew up the credibility? Fine. Next time the texts never get sent in the first place, or they all get sent through a disappearing message app. The dancing video was a disaster? Fine. Next time there will be NDAs prohibiting the accuser from any public appearance for 90 days post-incident. The playbook updates. The playbook learns. The playbook iterates. And Mila's lawyers are already, right now, studying this verdict to figure out what they should do differently with the next chef, in the next athlete's house, in the next jurisdiction. Mila Adams just paid the tuition for somebody else's masterclass, and she will never see a refund. And that, my friends, is the truth they will never tell you on the gossip channels. Because that truth does not fit in a thumbnail. That truth doesn't get clicks. That truth makes everybody uncomfortable. Defenders, accusers, lawyers, fans, players, leagues, everybody. So it gets buried. And we keep arguing about the surface while the architecture underneath keeps grinding people up. But you've seen it now. You can't unsee it. And once you see the playbook, you'll start seeing it in every single one of these cases that drops over the next 5 years. Mark this video. Come back to it. You'll see what I'm talking about. Nah. I'm telling you right now, this story is about to get way uglier before it gets any cleaner. The verdict isn't the ending. The verdict is the opening of the next 3 chapters. Let me walk you through exactly what I see coming, because I've been watching cases like this for a long time, and the after-trial moves are always more interesting than the trial itself. Path 1. The collapse path. Mila Adams is going to pivot to a civil suit within 90 days. Bet on it. Set a calendar reminder. Different burden of proof. Different jury pool. Different procedural rules. Different rules around what evidence comes in and what stays out. Her lawyers are drafting that complaint right now, as we speak. The complaint might already be done. They might just be waiting for the news cycle to soften before they file it. But here's where the wheels come off for Mila on the civil track. Every single piece of evidence that crushed her in criminal court is now public record, and almost all of it is admissible in civil court. The Dodge tape, the dancing video, the ruining that ******** life texts via NBC Boston's documented courtroom reporting, the deleted message admission cited in the Football Forever HQ verdict coverage, the $19,000 to $5.5 million escalation, all of it, every receipt, every clip, every transcript. She's gonna walk into civil court carrying every single bag from the criminal court. And the worst part? The strategic silence she should have maintained. The post-verdict silence that any decent legal advisor would have begged her to keep. That silence is gonna hurt her in civil court more than the verdict already did. Because every public statement she's made and is going to make becomes a deposition exhibit. She's about to lose again. In slow motion. In front of a smaller but more legally attentive audience. With bigger legal bills. And no criminal court drama to generate the viral coverage that fuels her settlement leverage. That collapse is coming, and there's no PR team on the planet that can stop it. Write that down. Path 2, the silent war path. Now flip the camera over to Stefon Diggs' side. Watch closely what happens to his next NFL contract. Watch which teams reach out to his agents. Watch which teams do not. Pay attention to the silence. Because that's where the real punishment is gonna live. A not guilty verdict legally clears Diggs. Full stop. He is, in the eyes of the law, completely cleared of these charges per the LA Times verdict report. But the league office plays a completely different game than the criminal courts. The NFL has its own personal conduct policy. Teams have their own internal risk assessments. Sponsors have their own opinions. Ownership groups have their own conversations behind locked doors. There are going to be quiet meetings in war rooms across the league about whether the press conference cycle of signing Diggs is worth the football production he brings. And his agents, the guys who are supposed to be working the phones right now, they're gonna have to work back channels harder than they've ever worked them. Because some teams are gonna pass on him, not because they think he did anything wrong, but because they don't want to spend the first 3 weeks of training camp explaining themselves to local reporters and national media. That's the silent tax of being publicly accused, even when you win. That's the cost no jury can refund. Diggs walks free, but his market value just took a quiet hit that's not gonna show up on any stat sheet. He's gonna feel that in his next contract negotiation, and the gap between what he should be worth and what he'll actually sign for is the invisible damage of this whole episode. Mark that one down too. Path 3. The culture shift path. This is the biggest one. This verdict, this 2-day trial in Norfolk Superior Court, is gonna become a citation. 5 years from now, when the next celebrity domestic adjacent assault case heads to trial, defense attorneys are gonna point to the Diggs case in their opening arguments. They are gonna say remember Mila Adams the same way prosecutors used to say remember the O.J. glove. That's how big this case just got, even though the news cycle is treating it like a 2-day blip. This case just rewrote a meaningful chunk of the playbook for how famous defendants fight back against this exact type of accusation. And the people watching the closest right now? Every other NFL player with a personal chef, a personal assistant, a personal trainer, a stylist, a driver, a nanny, anybody with intimate access to their private life. The whole league just got a memo, and that memo says, paper your relationships, record every interaction, save every text, set up cloud backups, never delete anything, and never settle a soft accusation, because settling is now public proof. And that memo isn't just going out to football players. NBA front offices are reading it. MLB clubhouses are reading it. Entertainment lawyers in Beverly Hills are reading it. Tech executives in Silicon Valley are reading it. Music industry representatives are reading it. Every wealthy man with staff and a contract just put the Diggs verdict on their reading list. The case is gonna circulate in private group chats for years. The chess move just happened. The board just shifted. And the next 10 years of celebrity domestic adjacent litigation just got measurably harder for accusers and measurably easier for defendants. For better, for worse, for the truth, for the lies, for the real victims and the opportunists alike. They are all gonna get caught in the same updated playbook. The Diggs verdict is gonna echo through this entire ecosystem until 2031 minimum. And by then, the playbook will have updated twice more. And we'll be having this exact same conversation about a new case, a new accuser, a new defendant, and a new escalation curve. Whatever happens from here, whatever path 1, 2, or 3 actually plays out, one thing is already crystal clear. Mila Adams already lost. The criminal verdict took her credibility. The civil case is going to take what's left. The dancing video, the deleted texts, the $5.5 million demand. The Dodge, all of it lives forever on the internet now. There is no comeback tour from that. There is no reinvention arc. There is no speaking out interview that fixes it. And the only real question left is how loud she wants the next chapter of her own loss to be. Quiet collapse or loud collapse. Those are the only 2 options on the table. Stefon Diggs walked out of Norfolk Superior Court a free man on May 5, 2026. But the receipts from this trial are gonna outlive the verdict, the news cycle, and probably most of our careers in this comment section. And the playbook? The playbook is still out there, still being refined, still looking for its next target. Keep your eyes open. Keep your receipts saved. And remember the name Mila Adams the next time you see a familiar silhouette in the headlines, because trust me, you're gonna see it again. Sooner than you think. You'll stay woke. I'm out. So listen. That's where I'm leaving y'all tonight. A jury made a call. The internet's gonna do what the internet does. But somewhere, in some other kitchen, in some other city, the next chef is watching this and deciding whether to ever say a word. Drop your honest take in the comments. Was this verdict justice, or was it a warning shot? Hit that like if you want me to pull the Griffith threads next week because that Maryland federal case is the shadow story behind this whole thing, and we're going in on it. Subscribe so you don't miss part 2 when those filings drop. Until then, stay sharp, stay nuanced, and stay loud about the right things. And by the way, tomorrow we're dropping something wild about another NFL star whose name keeps popping up in the same lawyer's filing cabinet as Mila's team. You do not want to miss that one.